The Annapolis City Council's Public Safety Standing Committee meeting is now called to order. It is now 6:10 p.m. and I will call the roll. Alderman Payon. Alderwoman Henson.
Here.
Thank you very much. Number 3, business before the committee. First is the approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Move to approve the minutes.
And I'm going to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion has been carried. All right. First item on the agenda is PSC 121817. Oh, excuse me. Is ID 1618 2018 Annual Goals and Safe Station Update. And we have before us Chief Stokes from the Annapolis Fire Department. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Do you have a presentation before us?
Stray a little bit from the agenda, just slightly.
Okay.
So I have a package in front of you, and I have it in order, so hopefully I can. So the first thing in your package should be this calendar year 2017 overview.
Yes, sir.
So this is just a brief overview that I do every year and present to the committee, so you have somewhat of an idea what happened last year for us. There were no fire-related deaths in the city of Annapolis, which is a good thing.
Amen.
Hadn't had one since February of 2010, knock on wood. Fire loss in the city was about $6.4 million. Most of that came from the Severn House apartment fire.
Mm-hmm.
We conducted 1,571 fire safety inspections in the existing buildings, or about 130 inspections per month. Our total responses for the year were just under 12,000, which is an 8% increase over 2016. So our call volume continues to rise. The vast majority of those calls are EMS or emergency medical services related. We transported 5,600 patients and collected about $1.7 million in EMS transport fees last year, which is a record year for us. Our members documented almost 30,000 hours of training on various topics. We conducted 107 public education events, installed 80 smoke detectors and 14 CO alarms for free, and our fire and explosive unit handled 286 requests for service. So,
Okay.
kind of simple.
Any questions so far?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Chief, thank you for compiling that fact sheet for us. In your inspections that the department does, the fire safety inspections, are you all checking for occupancy, over occupancy? Is that a part of the inspection?
As far as like overcrowding or something like that?
Correct. I've had some concerns expressed by residents in the ward of some residences, some homes being kind of more or less converted into boarding or rooming houses, and some of the residents will express an overflow of cars are on the street. They'll see a lot of people that are living in one house that's maybe a single family house, and it'll be crowded just from observations from neighbors of people in and out of the house. And I've always wondered, is that a fire hazard or concern if we have a home that's being more or less turned into a boarding house, if we're looking for those type of things on inspections?
So, just so you, these inspections are in commercial buildings. I have no authority in a single-family residence. The code does not permit me to go into a single-family residence unless it's listed as or being used as a boarding house, if it has a permit to be a boarding house, and we can inspect those, but they're done through the planning and zoning does those type of inspections. The issue that you're talking about, which we are very familiar with, we get some issues. Those complaints have to go through planning, zoning, and health department can get involved in that to a certain extent. But the way the law is written is very complicated. But as long as they're family members, the city's hands kind of tied. Quite honest. And if you go and ask them, they would tell you they're all family members.
Mm-hmm. Are you stating that it's planning and zoning that does the inspection of the multi-dwelling units, or is that
yes. Even like the apartment complexes, the only thing we can inspect is the common areas. We have no authority anyplace else in the building.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Henson, I can respond a bit. We've had at least several meetings regarding the issue that you have indicated here, and I can bring you up to speed offline on what we've been doing. I know Chief Stokes had brought in some information in the Bowie area. Ashley Leonard, who's our city attorney, also brought us some information from Baltimore County. So that is an issue we had started discussing last summer, but we have not brought it back to the table again. But we had the city manager involved as well as several other departments within the city. But I can bring you up to speed offline regarding that issue.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next item is our annual 2018 goals. There's, I think, 20 goals this year. Yes, there's 20 goals every year. This, as a refresher, every year the department sits down, we sit down with the union, the command staff, and we develop goals for the department. Our goals are a roadmap. They keep us moving in a direction. So there's 20 goals listed this year. I won't go through each one of them, but if you look at it and you have any questions, next meeting we can obviously discuss any of the goals that you have any concerns with. Okay. The next one is a patient care response policy. It's policy 7.23. The only thing on this is changed section, if you turn like the second page, section 723.6. The American Disabilities Act has policies and procedures now about service animals, and we are required to, if somebody has a service animal, to transport them in the medic unit with the patient. So this just outlines guidance for our personnel when to transport a service animal, and that the law requires that we do transport if there is a bona fide service animal.
Chief, since we have a new administration, have you discussed these ADA requirements with Mr. Rao, since he's our new ADA compliance person on staff with the mayor's office?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You might want to just touch base with him so that he's aware of this document that you have prepared here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? The next one is another policy, is 2.23. It's a complaint policy. So we had a very short, about a 2-paragraph complaint policy, and so we thought we should sit down and have a more in-depth policy, how we handle complaints. Now, I'll be very honest with you, we get very few complaints, but the ones we do get, we want to make sure they're handled properly, and there's some consistency in how we do that. So this document outlines how we handle complaints in the Annapolis Fire Department. So again, it's kind of lengthy, but if you look through it at the next meeting, have any questions about it, I'd be more than happy to discuss it and answer any questions you have about it. The next document is a draft of a policy that we would like to implement, but I would need this body's help to do so. So there are certain buildings in the city that are either poorly maintained or vacant, have been vacant for a long time. The classic one that comes to my mind is the one right behind Shoppers Food Warehouse. That house has been on fire 2 or 3 times, and it's all boarded up and it's vacant. And people keep breaking into it, and the homeless use it, and those type of things. So these buildings are very unsafe inside. Sometimes they have the roofs leak and the floors are rotten, and they're very unstable. And so they're create a big safety hazard for our firefighters. So a lot of cities have a policy where they actually label that building with it's like a star-looking device, sign like it's big, and it gets put on the front of the building. So if firefighters arrive there, they know that this is probably a structurally unsafe building, and they should be very careful at going inside and fighting a fire. So we would like to change a section of the city code. And did I send that to you? I think I emailed it to you.
Yeah, and I think we were going to also talk about it after the meeting to some extent.
Okay, so we'd like to modify this section of the city code, section 17, which talks about vacant structures. We'd like to add a blurb in there that gives us the authority to mark and identify these vacant structures that have been deemed unsafe. So you might ask, well, you might think, well, why does, if the building's in a city and there's city firefighters, why wouldn't we know where these vacant buildings are at? And that's very true, but we have mutual aid responses from Anne Arundel County Fire Department, United States Naval Academy Fire Department, sometimes Queen Anne's County Fire Department, and they are not aware of these vacant structures being in our city, so it's to protect them as well as us. So our mutual aid partners know that they might be entering a very dangerous building, structurally unsafe.
Yeah, Chief, I'm aware of the structure you're talking about on Old Solomon's Island Road. In fact, I know the family very well. If you'd like to meet with them or have any kind of conversations, certainly I can
Okay.
facilitate that.
There was one on Tyler Avenue, but that is, in the last 2 months, somebody bought that house, and they have done a lot of work to it. They basically gutted the whole house, and tore the roof off, and are rebuilding it, so, but that was a long term, been years sitting vacant. So the last thing I have is this update on safe stations.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? if I may?
Absolutely.
Chief, do you know if the star or whatever the decal is that they put on the home, how that would comport with the historic preservation requirements? Have we taken a look at that?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Thank you.
That's it. So, two things real quick. Safe stations. In the month of January, we had 16 safe station calls in the city. The county had 66 safe station calls. Since its inception, which has been a little over a year, there's been 534 safe station calls, city, county combined. So it's a very successful program and continues to grow. And one last, just an update. With the flu epidemic that's going around, it seems like everybody has the flu. Our medic units are very busy, and it's been well publicized, the hospitals are very busy. And sometimes our ambulances get at the hospital, and they're held hostage at the hospital. I can't get them out of there because the patients are on our stretcher. So I did email the president of Anne Arundel
I did receive that email
and asked her
from
for
Ms.
some help.
Bayless.
The other day, we had a medic unit sitting there for 4 hours, tied up in the ER. I just couldn't get it back out of the ER, so.
Yes, Alderman Taylor.
You know, for the first time ever, I was told by a doctor friend of mine that if at all possible, I should drive myself to the ER and not go by way of ambulance unless it was an absolutely had to do that because of a medical condition. I find that to be disgraceful, to be honest with you. It had always been the opposite. Hey, if you guys send somebody in, you're probably calling ahead to alert somebody as to what the condition is, and to be told by someone who didn't want to be identified, but is a friend of mine that is a doctor practicing here, that you're better off going in by yourself and just showing up, parking your car in the garage and walking on over if at all possible. I think that's pretty bad. I mean, the way that department seems to be run by the hospital, I think it's a real Achilles heel in terms of the standard of care there at the local hospital. I realize they're not here to defend themselves, but every time I'm in there, you know, there got to be, I mean, the waiting room is overflowing. Most of the bays, I guess I could call them rooms in the back, are filled up. And something's really, really wrong with the way that whole place is being run. Not the whole hospital, but the ER.
We talk to them a lot because they can go on bypass, which basically means they won't take any patients at all. There's different alerts. There's a yellow alert, there's a red alert, and there's a bypass. The bypass is they won't take any patients at all, which forces us to either
Well,
take...
actually, the guy said if you go by ambulance, if you can, tell them to take you to North Arundel.
Yeah, so if they
It's a
don't
better
bypass,
ER.
Or if they're extremely busy, we'll take patients at North Arundel, take them to Bowie Health, sometimes take them over to Eastern Shore.
Or Harbor, you all take?
Well, every once in a blue moon, we go to Harbor.
Okay.
But we met the other day and discussed, if they go on and get busy like they were the other day, we're gonna start taking them to Calvert. 'Cause I can run down Calvert, drop them off, and be back in the city in an hour and a half versus sitting there for 4 hours. Because when they type that Medicare in for 4 hours, I can't, it hurts us providing service because I lose my Medicare.
But, you know, I understand that on Saturday night or Friday night, particularly busy periods of time, but this guy said, you know, hey, even on Wednesday afternoon, it's
Busy
really
early
not
day.
a lot better.
I can bring you a report next meeting about how many times they go on bypass. They have to, it's all logged, it's documented through the state, so we have access to it. And we've met several times at the hospital about the
Well,
ER.
is it shorter for you guys if you go to North Arundel, excuse me? Baltimore, Washington Medical Center, excuse me.
Obviously, it's closest for us to go to Anne Arundel Medical Center, but if they're on bypass, then we go to the next closest hospital for us is BWMC or Bowie Health. Sometimes Bowie Health. They go to Bowie Health a lot, to be quite honest.
Well, this guy was telling me that they have a regular triage schedule at BWMC that, you know, they'll probably take a look at you real quickly within 5 to 10 minutes of the time you get there. And man, I don't ever see that down here.
Yeah, so.
Hey, when I really had to get seen, I got seen 10 years ago, believe me, but I, you know, other occasions, you know, slip and fall down the steps, that kind of thing. Not
Yeah.
good.
Sometimes people sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours. Anyway,
Yeah, isn't helpful for you guys, that's for sure.
that's all I have. Any questions?
Any further questions? Thank you, Chief Stokes. Appreciate everything that you all do for all of us.
You don't have an extra one of these, do you, by chance?
Okay, moving on to agenda item ID 2818, update
That's
status of the hazard mitigation plan after City
not gonna
Council
run out.
Resolution 218. And we have Mr. Mandel and Ms. Thomas. Thank you from
Do
the
not
Office of
worry about
Emergency Management. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Dave Mandel with the Office of Emergency Management, and here with Hannah Thomas, Exercise Training and Outreach Coordinator. For our first item on the agenda, as you mentioned, to update the status of the hazard mitigation plan after the City Council resolution. That was the resolution that the council passed unanimously on January 8th at that meeting to adopt the 2018 Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. So here's what's happened since then. We turned it right around and gave it back to FEMA. And it's still under review. We checked with them last week. The latest update we have is that they should give us their feedback within 2 weeks. Given the comprehensiveness of the plan, I think it's about 5 times as long as the previous one. We don't anticipate any trouble in terms of, you know, feedback that would require additional work, but we should have that answer within a couple of weeks. Once that is certified as approved, then it will continue our eligibility for both disaster reimbursement funding and for the large grant projects we're seeking for mitigation purposes. So we should have an answer, hopefully by the next council meeting, by next Public Safety Committee meeting, but I wanted to update you on that status of that plan. Moving on, unless there are any questions, we've also been engaging in multiple outreach projects in the last few months. We're always looking for ways to reach out to the public using innovative technologies, different kinds of sometimes it can be door knocking, sometimes it can be, you know, various kinds of outreach projects. And Hannah Thomas is here to talk about several different things that we've done over the holidays in the last couple months.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Hannah. I'm going to talk about the 4 things that we've kind of been doing recently, kind of been the focus of mine. So the first one was the holiday walking tour, and this was the 4th year that we've done this. Basically, the Emergency Management Office and the Fire Marshal's Office all pair up, and we literally walk around town, walk around Eastport, and we hand out flyers that we have. So we hit about through 250, 300 businesses this year.
Can you move the mic over a little bit?
There we go.
Thank you.
There we go. So yeah, 250 to 300 businesses this year. The Emergency Management Office gave flyers on emergency preparedness info, stuff about our app, as well as food safety and like some winter weather preparedness tips. And then the Fire Marshal's Office gave flyers on kind of real tree information, especially with the Christmas trees and just kind of some other holiday safety fire tips, and as well as some smoke alarm stuff. So that was the first thing that we did. The other thing that we were able to do is, I think most of you might have heard about this, Inspector Kenny White and I were able to get on Fox 45 with a Christmas tree, a live Christmas tree demonstration, the turkey fryer demonstration. We did a whole bunch of stuff on emergency kits. They were actually with us for about 6 hours, I think, from 4 a.m. on, and we did a whole bunch of segments. I think we ended up doing 11 segments that played throughout the morning on Fox 45. So that was great. And then Kenny and I were also able to do an ABC News segment about emergency kits and about just kind of some winter weather preparedness. And I have the ABC News segment. I don't have the Fox 45 segment, so if you guys would like to see that, I can send those your way.
Yes, we would, absolutely.
And then something that's ongoing and that's a little bit more APD focused is character counts, and obviously the APD runs that, but Inspector White has a classroom, and he is letting me shadow him, and hopefully in hopes to have my own classroom next year. But we are doing, you all pretty familiar with character counts, I think, but each.
That's the Miss Patty program.
Yes. So we just get a topic for each month. So January was fairness, February is respect, and we have a third grade classroom that we go into each Friday for about 25 minutes, and we talk to them about fairness and respect and anything else that kind of comes up, and sometimes we'll throw in some emergency preparedness information as well as some fire stuff, and they love it, and they seem to do really well, and they're very, very smart kids, I'll tell you that. And then the last thing, kind of a fun thing, Chief Simmons came to me with an idea a couple months ago about wanting to be involved with the community and having them see our information and creating value at every turn. So we worked together to create what we call the Know While You Go, and basically it's a bathroom sign that you put in stalls or in bathrooms that has emergency preparedness tips on them, and we theme them to the month or the season. So I have a couple demonstrations or examples that you all can look at here, but we've got them in the City Hall building, so this building, the Gorman Street building, and the Transportation building. So,
Have them at Rec and Parks?
not yet.
Okay, because I know they do have in their stalls, they have an opportunity for you to put some flyers in there as well.
We've been talking to the director about just that, so
Good.
as we're rolling this out and expanding it, I hope to see that happen in the future.
Wonderful.
Yeah. That's pretty much, other than the usual social media, that's kind of our biggest outreach focuses right now.
Okay. I know a couple of years ago, might have been the first or second year, that we had the Chambers Park Summer Concert Series out in Ward 3. Chief Simmons came out, just kind of a quick pop-up kind of thing, and talked to folks out there about emergency management. And that's when the app first came out, and I think people really enjoyed it. Last year, we had 6 concerts, probably about 2,400 people total. So I'll check with the Greater Parole Community Association's executive leadership team to see if you can come back out again this year and give us some updates on what you've been doing, and no more than 5-10 minutes at the most, because folks are there to hear the music.
Yes.
Not that they wouldn't want to listen to you.
Exactly.
But anyway, it turned out really well, so let's touch base about that. They run from twice a month, June through September, so we can get together about that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's a great reminder, Alderwoman, that any of your constituents that are looking for information on a range of information, it can be preparedness, it can be emergency kits, it can be hurricane season, it could be winter weather, snow shoveling. We pretty much run the gamut if it's related to our area of expertise. So let us know. We'll be happy to make any presentation on demand tailored to the audience. As a matter of fact, Hannah is going to Gardens of Annapolis, right?
Yes.
And that's on Friday, based on their request, their independent senior living facility, to have dinner and make a presentation there as well.
And talk to the families about how their residents can be better prepared. Okay, whatever you all need is right here.
Great, thank you. Questions? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have you all had the opportunity to engage with any of the Eastport Working Together sessions that are happening, hosted by the police department there in the community center in Eastport Terrace and Harbor House?
I can speak to that. The answer is no, because it's been my understanding that the focus has been crime prevention.
Correct.
We'd be happy to present. I know Chief Simmons has attended a number of those. If there is a demand, if there is an interest in hearing from us about some of the safety, we'd be happy to come anytime.
I think it's a great opportunity. People are gathered together, and I think it's at the point now, and the chief could certainly speak to that, where people are really moving towards solutions and results, and the dialogue is really progressing and moving forward. And I think anytime that we can pair that with information for the residents as well, that I mean, Alderwoman Pinto Charles is a participant, very active as well, can speak to that. But I think I don't know if the other members in the room who are there can attest to that, but that it may be a good place for getting out information as well.
We'll make it happen.
Thank you.
And I know Alderman Payon in Ward 2, they routinely have their summer events, so that might be an opportunity for you all to come out and talk. They have children and adults, and it might be very interesting. So something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Any questions, Alderman Payon?
None.
Thank you all very much. Thank you again
Thank you.
for being there for all of us.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. And that was ID 2918, Outreach Projects Holiday Walking Tour, Character Counts, Joint Media Projects with the Fire Marshal's Office. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Chief Baker, would you like to come forward and give us any kind of salient information? I'm sure he would.
But it's got to be salient,
That's right.
and you can't leave till you spell that correctly.
Chief Baker, Chief Scott Baker, Annapolis Police Department, thank you for joining us.
I was just here for the fire department presentation, and it was very informative.
And you do have something coming up on this Friday?
Oh, I have a lot of things coming up. So we are doing promotions this Friday in the council chambers at 1 p.m. We're promoting 2 lieutenants, 2 sergeants, 4 corporals, and recognizing 3 officer first class who are getting promoted. New deputy chief starts tomorrow. Just want to say that we just finished our first DARE program at Eastport Elementary School. Had the first graduation back in January, and now I think we're doing 6 classes this spring of DARE. Eastport Working Together, another very well-attended meeting. We had close to 70 people there, which just says a lot about the interest of making Eastport a little bit safer. You know, generally when we have meetings, it's 10 or 15 people consistently, but to have almost 70 people show up says a lot about, one, the interest in getting something accomplished, and Bishop Coates, who can really hold people, you know, hold their attention, and it's been really good. So, you know, his goal was to move it into the gym, and we're getting pretty close to doing that. So I'm really happy that that was an initiative that we started, but, you know, the whole idea was to turn it over to the community, and I think we're pretty much there. We just go there and stand in the kitchen and watch people eat, and, you know, maybe say a thing or two, but, you know, that's the way it should be.
And enjoy Lieutenant Krause's food
Yes.
that he
yes.
prepared himself.
Yes. So I'm very excited about the direction that's going, and I think that, you know, given a little bit more amount of time, that we could see that spread into other neighborhoods as well.
Absolutely. I know Bishop Coates indicated that he wanted to take the show on the road So I think that's a wonderful idea. Absolutely.
Right.
And there will be another promotion within the next 2 months. Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, yes, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Yeah. We're waiting for some things to clear up, and then we should do a couple more promotions. What else? We are putting out, beginning tomorrow, we're putting out a bike team, 2 officers, who, they're going to extend our Clay Street net team through Clay Street, the first block of West Street, down Main Street, and they're also going to be responsible for patrolling the lower part of Eastport. So that'll kind of combine with our net team from Clay Street through downtown Eastport, and then you connect them to the 2 officers that we have in Harbor House and Eastport Terrace. And my next 2, I've got 3 people coming out of an academy shortly, and if I can get 2 more people and put them on bikes along Forest Drive and deal with Newtown 20, Woodside Gardens, Robinwood, and through the lake, then we're doing good. So the final thing, I hate to talk about this, but our crime numbers, because I know I'm going to jinx myself. I'm just going to talk in generalities. Over the last quarter, talking about November, December, January, we are 35% down in crime.
Praise the Lord.
30% down in January. We had 59 total Part 1 crimes in January, which is very, very low. I don't know that I've seen it that low, but yeah. And we're putting a lot of people out on the street. Our administration, our administrative people are very few and far between. So the men and women of the Annapolis Police Department are really working hard and driving those numbers down.
Thank you, Chief. The other thing I want to mention, was it last month, I guess it was December, you as well as our city manager and Major Seidel, Captain Seidel, had a very fruitful meeting. We looked at the statistics. I shared them with Alderman Payon as well as Alderwoman Henson. Got some great feedback looking at times of the day, days of the week, where these, especially the homicides, had occurred. And my personal request, of course, and I'm going to work on that, even taking a look at the perpetrator as well as the victim to see a sort of a general profile of that as well, but actually honing in on what's happening out there, where it's happening, and putting the resources where they need to be, but also being assured that we combine it on a holistic approach with education and health and social and recreational activities, because when we looked at the 5 areas that the residents from Eastport Terrace Harbor House looked at, it boiled down to education, safety, community services, jobs, and social services. And then we fleshed those out, looking at who in the room that came to the meeting could be of great help. My understanding is there's going to be a girls' knitting club starting, and those kinds of things based on the people who are attending the meetings, and then moving out from there and inviting folks from the school system, Dr. Olado, Fran Phillips from the health department, and other folks in our community, in the agencies, that we can look at those 5 components and hook those into the people and seeing what we can do from the outside as well. So that's, and I know Alderwoman Henson had indicated taking it further. We've somewhat honed in on what the people in the community have to offer, and we're going to extend it out. So I think it's a great model for what we can do in the community, and I think it will work in the city. We're also looking at the Street Corner Ministries Coalition, and the church is getting involved, and that we meet monthly, but also having the mayor attend a meeting within the next couple of months as well to talk with the faith-based community as to how we can involve them even more in what we want to do. But absolutely, the police department has played a critical role in what we want to do in our city to make our city safer, but also to look at the other components. the community ambassadors, the Strengthening Families program, and those types of programs that can really, really help. But we thank you for starting and then stepping to the side and allowing the community to do what they need to do. And certainly, we're not going to let the fire department or OEM be not a part of this. We also looking for them to help us as well and being supportive, and we can talk about that as well at a later date. Chief Stokes.
So, thank you, and I really do appreciate your comments. I've had two very interesting conversations just today about the police department, and the expectations are that the police department do everything and solve everybody's problem. And it's starting to come out that we can't solve everybody's problem. We're not the go-to solve everything. And it's important that, the council and the government and individuals in the community, and it's much broader than just the police department trying to solve problems. And so I appreciate your comments, and, I'm just really happy of the direction that program's going over in Eastport right now.
Absolutely. The other thing I want to mention too, that we had discussed at our meeting, and we all came to a consensus, as far as the internal workings and culture of the police department, that you have taken our suggestion to talk to each person, rank and file, in the department, 10 to 15 minutes, that has grown to maybe 45 with some, to find out exactly their thoughts on community policing, their thoughts on the culture of the department, where they see themselves in that department, and what they can do to help us all. And I think that one-on-one conversation is extremely helpful. I have had over the past week or two to talk with some of the rank and file as well, to find out their thoughts, and I think it's been extraordinarily enlightening. I think we can move forward in that direction, even going back to 2 years ago with the caucus and what they had to bring to us. But also, you have reached out as far as the advisory board, and we're going to work on the piece of legislation to get that going as well. I think it's a great opportunity for people to be engaged and to turn it over maybe once a year, and to have different folks serving on that board. So we have a lot of innovative things going on, I think, and I'm very pleased with the direction that the police department is taking. And I am likewise very encouraged by what the fire department and OEM are doing for our city. It's critical to every component, every quality of life decision that's made. Thank you so much. Alderman Payon,
Thank you.
do you have any comments to make?
No.
Alderwoman Henson.
Yeah, I want to echo Alderwoman Pendell Charles's sentiment on the Eastport neighborhood working groups. It was started kind of out of a tragedy, but it has really turned into something where people are really seeing the power of the community and the power of the collective resources that are there at the table, the power of everyone's voice, identifying different problems, different solutions. So it's great to see the police department spearhead that and to continue to take that on. Also, your officers were at a Seeds for Success dinner that they do, and they interacted with the children. I wasn't there, but I was able to see the photos and the pictures, and it was wonderful to see the children getting that from a young age, respect and understanding of the police and the police interacting with them, short of growing up in the city. When you see a person transition from a kid to an adult and you have that sort of built-in relationship, it really kind of makes community policing so much more rich when you have that foundation. Also, the DARE program, if you would send us invites or let us know when they're having graduations, if our schedules permit, I know
Absolutely.
that's something that I would love to attend and
Absolutely.
be able to support the effort and the children there. A couple of questions. So we have a piece of legislation that's before the council, and what the legislation is seeking to do is for the towing of abandoned vehicles. Currently, it's in the police department's purview and then any of your designated agents. So it looks like we have two different tow companies that we work with. we are seeking to kind of expand that and allow the vendor that does our parking services to be able to tow as well any abandoned vehicles that are in the city. Do you have a position on expanding that beyond the police department's authority and opening that up to a private vendor?
No, I think SP Plus is a partner in these parking situations, and it should be opened up.
As it relates to the towing fees that are collected, are the fees, does the person that does the tow, they keep the fees, or is that forwarded anyway back to the city right now?
That I'm not sure of. I know that we pay a lot of towing fees, mostly from accidents and abandoned vehicles and things like that. I'd have to double check on when they're called and who pays. I'm just not sure on that one.
Thank you. Also, your civilian advisory board, I saw the call went out for that. What's the goal there with the civilian advisory board?
So, this is it's hard to believe I've been in this position for almost a year, and on my board that I keep in my office of things to do is Civilian Advisory Board. And I just so happened about 2 weeks ago to walk into the Community Relations office, and there was a brochure from McGriff. And we don't use McGriff anymore. You actually have to be licensed to do it. But anyway, you open up the pamphlet, and it says, it's community policing, and it's create advisory board, invite the public in. And that's really all this is. It's very simple. It's an opportunity for me to meet with a group, I'm guessing about 10 people, once a month to discuss the direction of the agencies, our policies and procedures, issues that they see in their community, and maybe they come in with ways to address those issues. It's also an opportunity for us to get our message out. We do a lot of good things that a lot of people in Annapolis don't know that we do. And so it's kind of a two-way street, get message in, message out. This isn't a review board. They're not reviewing internal investigations. They're not making recommendations as to punishment or findings in internal investigations. I think that is something completely different that has to go through a whole another process.
That was totally my understanding. Maybe it's because I worked on the, the
Right.
subcommittee that I
Right.
worked with, but when I read that in the paper, it didn't really make much sense to me because I wasn't aware that they weren't going to do anything other than simply review and advise,
Right.
which is,
Well, I see it as two different things, and I see it as a review board. I've had conversations with the caucus and conversations with Reverend Tollett, and there's a different composition of a review board as opposed to an advisory board, I think. And there's different requirements, there's different recommendations, and I think in order to have a review board, you have to bring the union into this, because I think there are going to be some changes in work conditions if one is recommended, and I think that's a whole conversation that has to happen. This is completely separate. This is a board chosen by me. It will be diverse, young, old, African American, white, Hispanic, business owner, clergy, men, women. It's going to run the gambit. And it's an opportunity, I see it as my board. If council members start picking people and the mayor, I'll take recommendations all day, but I think the final word should be with me. Because when the council picks people, they're looking for inroads into the police department. You have inroads into the police department. You can call me any time of any day and get a response. And so I'd rather have people who are actively engaged in the community that can take that message back. Not saying that your recommendations wouldn't be, but I think they have to come from a different pool of people.
Had you considered maybe a high school student?
If you remember at the Eastport Working
Yes,
Group.
that's what I was thinking.
For those that don't know, there were 4 students from Phoenix Academy that stood up and spoke. Are you aware of this?
Yes.
Yes. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and they came up with a program called Hood to Good, and they expressed the things that they were interested in, mentoring, and they just wanted to know that people cared about them. They had a laundry list of items. And when I stood up to speak, I looked right at him, and I would love to have any one of those four sit on the advisory board. And I'm not we need to hear from young people in order to get this right. And so, yeah. So far, I've seen an application from someone who's 81, and if we have to find a high school student, to be involved, then we'll go find a high school student.
That's a perfect place to start.
Absolutely.
But it came all back to just one word with them, mentoring.
Absolutely.
It kept coming back to that word. And it's a simple word and a simple request, but we can make it work, absolutely. Also, I have a meeting this week with Anne Arundel County Public Schools. We're going to talk about some mental health services too. And I've already met with Arundel Lodge, so they're doing some work.
I'm meeting with, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
go ahead.
I'm meeting with William Rao tomorrow, and
Good.
we're going to look at messaging on opioids for low-income housing communities, and how are we getting that message out for treatment. We're working on that. And just to go back to Seeds of Success, there's a story that I told at the Eastport Working Group meeting. After Lieutenant Krause finished having dinner, he walked into the gym, and there was teenagers, a little older, playing basketball inside the gym. He went out to his car, put all his stuff away, put on his gym clothes, and went back in and played basketball. And they saw him as Kevin and not as Lieutenant Krause. They were surprised that he was willing to go in there and not have his equipment and his gun and this, and it made me really proud. And I pointed it out at the meeting that, that's the kind of things that we're doing, but people don't see it. And so when I get that opportunity to sing his praises or anybody's praises for going outside of what the norm is, it goes a long way.
It certainly does, and that's been proven. Thank you so much. I'm going to be probably, as we go along, asking for maybe something, just a one-pager, a quarterly report from the police, as well as from the fire department, as well as from OEM, on different, have it staggered, and probably something once a year from Mary, from risk management, just so, because it has been surprising to me that people actually do watch not only city council meetings, but also these committee meetings, and I want the public to know what's going on. I think that's really important. We may up here ask you questions that we already know the answer to, but the people in the audience who are watching don't necessarily know the answer. So I think it's extremely important for people to hear the questions and hear the answers, and also, like I said, something in writing that we can go through quarterly, just the one pager, nothing of great magnitude. Whatever you want to put down on the paper is fine with me. But I think it's extremely important. Like you said, it's getting the message out. People need to hear it, and folks do watch. I've been really surprised, to say the least. Thank you so much, Chief. Oh, sorry. More questions?
If I may, just with one more.
No, go right ahead.
Thank you, Alderwoman Pendle Charles. With the promotions that are coming up, what's the diversity like of the candidates that are up for promotion?
I don't have it in front of me, but the corporals are 50% African American and 50% white. The captains are 50-50, and soon will be, I'm trying to do the math, 66% African American and 33% white, and then we'll have an existing white male. So the captains will be 50% African American and 50% white. Sergeants, I don't recall off the top of my head. I don't think we have much diversity. We have one female. We have one female, and Corporal Freeman is getting promoted. So one African American and one white male.
And we can work on even more outreach into the Latino community. And now that Alderman Mark Rodriguez is on
Absolutely.
the council, that's something I'm sure he would be extremely interested in talking about, even though he's not on this committee, but it does not matter.
No, it doesn't matter. We're always, 50% of our hires in 2017 were minorities, and that's our focus. In order to get diversity up here, we have to start down here because there's that testing process. So
Certainly.
we have to get people in.
Sir.
A lot of questions were asked of me since joining this, since being appointed to this committee, of the diversity of your command staff. And I'm not sure that I know from memory what the command staff is. Could you?
So if you went with exempt positions, it would be me. The deputy chief that I'm hiring tomorrow is white. But then we're going to have 4 captains positions. 2 are African American and 2 will be white. Lieutenants, 1 Hispanic. And the rest are white out of 6.
You said lieutenants?
Yes.
Mhm.
I can get you those numbers. I have them broken down in a document. I'll get them out to you.
Thank you.
And then 1 coming that's going to be acting, is that correct, Chief?
Correct.
Okay.
The deputy chief position, is that something that the department filled from within, or was that a new hire from somewhere else?
It's a combination of both. So, Paul Herman is a retired major from Baltimore. But,
No.
but he has worked in the agency over the last 4 or 5 years, coming on. His technical skills when it comes to IT and the like are unmatched. He was actually taken back to Baltimore under the consent decree to work on their IT issues. So he comes in with a wealth of knowledge, both operational and technical.
Thank you.
Did he start here?
Did he start yet?
Did he start here,
No.
way back when?
No.
I know that name, but
He probably came here in 2010, 2011. I don't know off the top of my head. But he was brought in to help our systems talk to one another. He was doing some coding and some other things, looking at our hardware or software and trying to get that up to speed.
Okay. Any other questions from
If I may just
committee
make a
members?
comment.
Oh, certainly, go right
I
ahead.
would be remiss if I didn't mention that Joe Hudson, the Hispanic liaison, has been, in my ward, we have Annapolis in general has concentrations of people. We are a city that's very segregated, more or less. But he's been really instrumental in doing great work in my ward, and then my husband teaches at Annapolis Middle School, and has had the opportunity to interact with him there at Annapolis Middle as well. I've seen him in passing, going and coming from there, so I don't know what your assessment of him is, but from what I can
That's
see,
terrible.
he's been.
You didn't expect that one, did you? No, Joe is an invaluable member of our team and has been ever since he's gotten here.
Yes, I
He's
just wanted to echo that.
He's extremely responsive. I haven't had any occasion where I didn't call him and he was right there to
Right.
assist in whatever I needed. He's extraordinary,
He is.
to say the least.
He is.
Any other questions or comments from the dais?
no. Madam Chair, is it time for me to make a motion?
Oh, no. Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you. Have
for
a good
that-
night.
for all that you all do. And Alderman Payon, certainly make your motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and we are adjourned at 7:03 PM.
Good job.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Hey, Chief?